Hello farmyard friends. I don't know why that cut off, but I was in the middle of recording, which is weird. But today we are going to be going over some things, digging up potatoes, pruning tomatoes, and doing all the things in between. And videos coming this week with garden updates and garden tour and some other things. Garden tour has been delayed, and I'm sorry for that, you guys. We've had a few family things, and then not having enough time to film, or the weather not permitting. So what I was doing was I showed you guys the bucket of the potatoes. It's only filled up like probably 3 or 4 inches from the top. The stalks were in it. I'm going to show this again, but the stalks were in. I pulled out one. I got one with the plant pulling out, and then I got another one. Now there are probably more in here, so I am going to check. It is something that you always want to do with potatoes, is check where you're digging and check around them and things like that. I grow mine in buckets because we don't have the in-ground space, and our soil's not the best. You can grow in it, but it's not the best. And so we have buckets, and the first year we used buckets for everything, and then after that we saw that they were still doing fine, and I didn't want to get rid of my buckets because we did spend like a year and a half collecting buckets from different places, and I felt like there was definitely a need for them, and the potatoes have come in very handy. I do carrots in here as well. Those will be started probably soon. I forget the carrot timeline thing, but that's fine. And these potatoes, I am going to tell you, they are not ready to be pulled technically, but they have blight really bad, and they haven't grown in like 3 or 4 weeks. They started to recover, but our temperatures are getting too hot, so I'm going to plant some more, put them in a shaded place, and just hope for the best with the rest. And yeah, but I've missed a potato. You always seem to miss one. You will find random potatoes every now and again. These are the russet reds. I do have some Adirondack blue behind you guys, which this is what I've already done. Just have 3 more buckets to do. Well, 2 more after what I've just done, but this is what I mean. They just have blight really bad. They've started to look better, but it's just too hot, and I'd rather go through a whole bunch of plant issues myself. So I have more buckets of potatoes, and I can plant more, so I'm not too worried about it. Planting these in this way with buckets or pots, containers, whatever, it is easier when you are digging for your potatoes because you don't have to, you're not worrying about them being in a whole bunch of different other places. Wait a second. Sorry. You don't have to worry about them being all over the place and in a far corner and you not getting all of them. Buckets is easy. You can dump out the bucket into a wheelbarrow, 2 or 3 buckets probably, and get all of the potatoes that way. It is so easy to do that I will always recommend doing potatoes in buckets. Now, there will come a day when I will contradict this and I do them in the ground because it will be easier, and that will be after my garden, or once I get a new farm, or once I get a farm with more acreage for a larger garden and all of the things that are accompanied with that. So, but they will be in buckets until then. So let me do what I did before and then cut off. What I do is each stalk right here, I can't get good angles, but I just pull each stalk out, and sometimes you'll have a potato stuck to it. This one just has a whole bunch of little ones, which if I would have left those and probably moved them into the shade and they didn't have blight, they would have done fine. So that's if they didn't have blight. But what I do is I just pull each stalk up. You will get multiple stalks. This one doesn't have a potato either. Sometimes they just get pulled off. It's really easy to do that. This one also doesn't have a potato. They're all down there, I can guarantee you. But these are being pulled early because of the blight problem that I'm having. It's an early blight, and I can't get rid of it. So that is why we are pulling them, and I will wait, or I will plant more potatoes soon and just move them into the shade because of the heat. But okay, this I'm going to tell you guys because I was not prepared for this when I first started. When you are digging them up, you will find in the ground that there is a potato, obviously, but it will be different than the others. It's going to be brown, mushy, not right. This is the seed potato that you planted in the ground to get these smaller potatoes. This will not regrow, but it sent out the stalks, and it let out the tubers, which is what potatoes are. And this will be in the ground. Sometimes you will hit it with your finger and it's mushy. Sometimes it's hollow. Sometimes you barely notice anything, and sometimes it's just shriveled up. I found a bunch, and my hands have been all in potato juices, but that's besides the point. So realize that before you get into it and you just stop digging when you hit that potato. There are potatoes in there. Each potato bucket will have it. Sometimes it's a big potato, sometimes you don't notice it at all, and sometimes you do. So just be aware of that. It's something that I was not aware of when I was first starting out my potato journey. This is the third year I'm growing potatoes. The first year I only grew, I think, 1 or 2 varieties. I've been growing 3 since then because I've added the Adirondack Blue along with the Russet Reds and the Yukon Gold, or the Kennebec. That's not how you say it, but that's the closest, like, spelling-wise, I guess. I don't know. But, yeah. So I've grown those, but I always grow a gold variety, a red variety, and red variety and a purple variety, which the purple variety is doing really good. When I'm digging these up, you were getting somewhere between 5 and 6 potatoes usually. That's on average. Some will have more than that. Some won't have as much as that. It's depending on what you do, obviously. But this one had 4, and I think I put 2 over here, 2 or 3. So this one had 7, which is good. You aren't going to get a whole lot of potatoes from one bucket. Obviously, you can't get so much from one thing and another one. But it is a good... I don't know where I was going with that, but you can get a bit. I would say no more. I haven't pulled out 10, but I know people who have pulled out 10 from doing their stuff. So just be careful. So when you're doing that, you might want to account for more people. If you're growing, it's all over me now. If you have a large family that likes potatoes and you want to put some up for the next year and things like that, get more. Plant more potatoes, because you will probably want to eat them right when they come in, and then save some too. So always a larger potato space is what I would recommend if you are looking to preserve potatoes or save them for a little while longer. Just be aware that it will take more potato plants than a tomato plant necessarily, because tomatoes will produce more than a single potato plant. That is a little potato speech for right now. But yeah, there are a lot of things that you can do with growing potatoes. I've seen people do them in feed sacks, feed bags even, from after you get your chicken feed. And those all work great. No shame to you. I've wanted to try it, but I have the buckets, and I'm like, I don't want to just not do it. But so you can grow them in a bunch of different ways. These same buckets that I'm growing potatoes in right now, I'm going to grow another round of potatoes, but when the Adirondack Blue finishes, those buckets will be empty, and I will be able to do flowers for the fall in those, and they turn out wonderful. You just need to make sure that you're watering enough and things like that. And it does take dirt, yes, obviously, but you can get... just dug my hand into another potato. To another rotten potato, which is not fun. This is what I'm telling you guys about. But you can grow different things in these buckets. It's not just a one thing bucket where it's only potatoes. No, I grow flowers and a bunch of different other things. I will plant more, or I will put more compost in this before I do my flowers, because I want them to have the nutrients that they need. And then I will put the flowers in there and have a nice fall showing of flowers. So these buckets can be used for everything. You can do lettuces, cabbages, carrots in the winter, things like that. And they work incredibly well for them. Greens, you can move them into a greenhouse. You can have a garage that you can move them into. All of these things, these buckets are very versatile. This is why I love buckets. I will always preach buckets with gardening, because it is where I started out. I will always have a bucket garden, whether it's just a few plants or 100 plants. Either way, I'm gonna have a bucket garden, one way or another, because it is where I started out gardening. And it is a very important place to begin, and I don't want anybody to feel any shame about planting in a bucket. I plant tomatoes in here too. I'll pull off suckers from mine and propagate, which videos on that coming up. And those will have everything that they need. The tomatoes will, and I can do peppers in here. You can plant so many things in buckets. I'm telling you guys. Vines, I've done vines in here, cucumbers, watermelon, pumpkins. You just need to make sure that you're watering enough, especially if you're in the heat, because the buckets will dry out quicker than your soil will, or the buckets will dry out sooner than your raised bed or in the ground will. So be careful of that, where you just want to make sure that there is enough ground, that they're moist, or that they are well watered. Jeez, struggle. That they are well watered. You don't want them to get too dry and to not do well because of not being watered. When it's hot like this and they're in buckets, or like a kiddie pool that it's not enough depth to a soil, I will plant, or I will water every single day, because I want them to get the water that they need. So I water every single day. If it's super hot, I'll do twice a day, just because, and let them soak up the moisture at night. But that is only what I do sometimes. This year I don't think it's supposed to be as hot. Sorry, I'm going to get my shears to prune some of these tomatoes, and I'm gonna have to pause in a minute because I need to go get my tape, or not my tape, my my string to tie up these tomatoes. I used zip ties last year, but the zip ties, it was a lot of zip ties being used, and I was like, that's so wasteful, and because you can't reuse them. So I was like, we'll just do this one way or another. It's gonna work out. So I'm debating on where to start. I want to start down there because there's only one plant. I'm not messing with anybody. So this is going to be a struggle because I've let them go entirely too long, which is my fault. I know. So the way that I prune is something that I saw from somebody on Instagram. I believe she has a YouTube channel. I'm pretty sure she does. If I can find it, I will link it below. And yes, but she only pruned off leaves. She let a bunch of suckers go because the leaves were not important, and you get more leaves with suckers anyways. So once I get them situated in a good area, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go through and I'm going to prune off leaves. I want to start from the bottom, and I'm not going to be able to because of how these are, but I can't even see my fruit right now, so it needs to be done now rather than later. So I'm going to do this, and yeah, but they are a wild mess. So I will show you guys in a minute, but let me Let me get the hang of it again because it's been a while since I've pruned, but I will be right back to show you guys what I'm doing. And also, while I'm doing this, so I'm not going to be speaking directly to the camera, but which is a no-no, but when pruning tomatoes, it actually improves their yields and it keeps them more disease-free because they get good airflow this way. They're tied up. Everything's looking great on them. So if you can tie them up or you can cut them, either way, I would recommend doing it. It's the easiest way to do things and it keeps them disease-free for longer. So let me continue doing this, and I actually see a bunch of tomatoes that look like they're going to be ready soon. So let me show you guys after I'm done pruning off a little bit more. And when I say cut off all the leaves, I'm not saying cut off every single leaf branch, and I will get a close-up video of me doing this in just a second. I don't mean cut off all of these. I mean cut off anything from the bottom and let the top 2 or 3 feet continue going, and then as it continues growing, continue snipping and leaving that 2 to 3 feet because it's easier that way. But yeah, let me continue doing this and I will see you guys in just a second. I keep saying that, but I keep thinking of things to say. I do have a nice little pile coming along, cutting these off. But, well, it looks like something's been in here getting things, but that's fine. Once these are staked up, nothing should be coming into the garden or getting anything. And I was having a problem with my chickens getting out, but that problem has been solved, and it's wonderful now. So, these guys will need to be staked up in just a moment. I just need to find all of the branches and get them tied up. This is going to be a little bit of a task. I might need help with this. So I might end up having to go get my sister for help because this is quite an undertaking to do by yourself if you've let them go as far as I have. Simply because of time and me thinking it's going to take too long, which is procrastinating. Obviously, I'm not going to deny that. I've been procrastinating against doing this. I haven't wanted to, but it does need to be done. And I'm done putting it off because they're so much healthier once you do this. So let me go see if I can get my sister and we will tie these up and I will show you in a moment and also a close-up too. I said I was going to be back after, and then I accidentally pruned off a sucker with this. So with this sucker, I'm going to take it inside, put it in a glass of water, let it sit for a few weeks. I am going to label the jar so I know which variety it is, which it's not that important to me after now, but you can sit it in a jar, wait for roots to develop, transplant it into a cup with soil, let it continue developing that way, and it will continue growing, and you can get flowers even when they're in the jar. But this will be going inside with me in a moment when I get my sister. I still haven't done that. It hasn't been that long since I was last here, but I'm just pruning, so that sucker will be going inside. That is a good learning opportunity, and especially if you didn't plant enough plants or you wanted a little bit later harvest with some, that's a great way to do it, and you don't have to start anything inside. You just have to let these sit, let them get a root system on them, and they'll do just fine. Which is the amazing part about tomatoes. Tomatoes are very hardy plants. I will preach that a lot because they are very incredibly hardy because of what they do. Oh, I think one of these plants has blight, but it doesn't matter because everything that's infected is getting cut off. That's the joy about tomatoes. You can cut off a whole bunch and you can prune them down to practically nothing, and it does nothing to them. They rather enjoy a nice pruning, actually, which is a good thing. But yeah, so these will be being pruned. The suckers, I will take more suckers off to go in with me and place them in a jar of water. You can do a vase, you can do a few different things, just anything that they're sitting in water, growing and developing roots. Either way, just as long as they're in water. But let me continue doing this, and then I need to go get my sister. So this will hopefully be the last time that I'm back here. But I keep thinking of things, obviously. Oh, another thing. Tomato suckers aren't bad. They always tell you cut off the tomato suckers, cut off the tomato suckers, cut them off, cut them off. I challenge that. I really do. Don't cut off the tomato suckers. You aren't getting anything from more leaves. You don't get any more tomatoes from that. You get more tomatoes when you have a sucker because it's allowing more things to sprout out. So I keep suckers. I let 4 or 5 I let the main stalk go, and then 3 or 4 others go. And it's so wonderful. You get so many more tomatoes this way. I've tried it. I didn't do a video on it, but I have tried it, and it works so much better. So challenge the rules, guys. Challenge them. And they might shock a little bit after a big pruning like this, but in my experience they haven't. Just give them enough water and they'll recover quite quickly. I don't want to give them water yet. I want to finish pruning first, and I have a little bit more time until the sun hits. It is going to rain tomorrow, but I am going to go ahead and water today because I would rather do that and make sure they have what they need. So that's my plan here, is to just prune as much as I can see, get them tied up, prune even more, and go from there. It is going to look like I'm killing the plant as much as I'm pruning. It's not killing the plant. I did this last year, and they did just fine. So, it's just things that you figure out when you watch different people. This is by no means my own idea. I give full credit to Alex from Sunrise Farm, or Sunrise on the Hill Farm. Complete credit, because she did this, and I was like, well, I'll try it because I wanted to prune my tomatoes and I didn't really know how. And she did it. We both had very similar results. We both got way more tomatoes than we've been getting, and it just worked out so much better. Less diseases. Mine had no diseases last year that I can remember off the top of my head. They all look really healthy, and I am so thankful for that. So I'll always be thankful for Alex for sharing that, and then me taking her advice on doing this style of pruning. And yeah, it's Alex's idea. So thank you, Alex. And yeah, it's so much better doing it this way in my eyes. It made so much sense. Right after she said it, I was like, that makes so much sense. Why are people not doing that? And yeah, so I've started doing it, continued doing it, and I will continue doing it. So yeah, let me continue doing this, and then I need to get my sister for real this time. I forgot to mention, I can't remember what Alex did with hers, but what I did was I did not prune my determinate tomatoes, which means that they get to a certain height, they produce a certain number of fruits, and they're done, because they only get to a certain height and they only produce a certain number of fruits. So what I did was I only did it on my indeterminate varieties, and that's what I'm continuing to do this year. Last year it was a success, so this year I'm going to continue doing that. I might prune off some of my determinates, but I need to research further and then share my findings here. And I'm not trying to tell anybody that they need to prune this way. This is just the way that I prune, so I wanted to share that in case people didn't know how to prune tomatoes. I wanted them to know that you can do it anyway. It's not just this sort of way or whatever, it's anyway. And I'm not shaming anybody if they don't do their tomatoes like this, or if they do, fine. Or if you want to try this, try it. Maybe try a few and see, do an experiment. Those are always fun to do. So I'm not shaming anybody if you do not do your tomatoes like this. Everybody has preferred ways to garden. This is just my preferred way because it's the only way that I've done, really, but it's also worked. If it didn't work, I would have tried a different way, but it worked. And if it works, why are you gonna try to switch up? I mean, yeah, you can try different ways. Like next year I might try different ways to prune or something like that, and just do an experiment. And if one gives me more than the other one, we'll do the experiment again the next year and see if it was just a fluke that year, or see what happened, and if I can do it again, I'll do it again. But I am not shaming anybody, so if you feel that way, I am incredibly sorry, because this is just the way that I know how to prune, or this is the way that I know how to prune. And if you don't know how to prune, this isn't necessarily a tutorial on how to prune, but it's just what I do to prune. So I feel like I've said prune a lot, and I have. But yeah, let me get back to it. I have already done a lot. I don't have a whole lot more to do, but I kind of do in a sense. But I will see you guys back in a second. And when I'm pruning, and when anybody's pruning, I would actually suggest cutting off anything that is not doing well. Obviously, if it's not doing well, cut it off. You could try to fix it, but you also don't want to risk it spreading to all of your other plants and you losing more of a harvest than just like a part of a plant. So go all out if you can, and fix things. Sorry, my ducks are freaking out for some reason. But yeah, so try to just see what works, and if it's infected, cut it off. I would highly recommend that. Now, you don't have to listen to me, you don't have to take my advice, but instead of losing a whole plant, it makes sense to cut off one faulty part than lose a whole plant over not taking the right precautions. So that's just my thinking. I think I'm just going to edit this video into another video, or edit another video onto this video showing me finish this, just so my phone doesn't accidentally die on this. So there'll be more for you guys, but thank you for watching up until this point, and I'll see you guys in another clip. Bye.